Hello, everybody. It's Jason Dump's New Age Revolutions to Cave. And I've got peanuts in my mouth. I've got peanuts in my mouth. Take two. I've got some peanuts in my mouth I just ate, and so I'll be, wrestling with the leftover nuts in my mouth. Oh, anyway, wow. All right. So what are we doing? It is Friday on the big show, and that means it is my 30 most memorable wrestling moments, and we are up to number 5, my 5th most memorable wrestling moment, or my most memorable memories when it comes to the world of professional wrestling in my childhood. Big part, as you all know. What else is going on a Friday? This is really gross to do this on camera, isn't it? Just kind of get the nuts out. Tomorrow's Saturday, so the program will be preempted tomorrow. Possibly, we are going to go to Canada, and we're going to hang out at Frightmare in the Falls, and we're going to meet. We're going to meet at least. I'll count them as one. So I'm going to meet, I forget if it's which one were the twins in, the 2 twin girls? I think that was the Tommy Jarvis one. So that was Corey Feldman's episode. That was Corey Feldman's one. So what is that? Is that 4 or 5 with Corey Feldman? So the daughter, the blonde who survives, she's going to be at Frightmare in the Falls. Her little boyfriend guy that helps out, fend off Jason, he's going to be there, and the 2 twins from the show, they're going to be there, and of course Corey Feldman. So it's a part 5 reunion if I've got the part right. So I'm going to at least meet. We're going to call them 4 people. I mean, 1 set of twins, so that doesn't even count as 2 people, right? Because they're just weirdo twins. I'm just kidding. I don't know if I'm going to meet Corey Feldman. I don't know if I'm going to pay the ridiculously high cost to meet him and get a photo. I don't know. Will I regret it? Probably. So we'll see. We'll see. As of right now, spare cash on hand, I'm bringing about $320. We'll see. We'll see. We'll see. Okay? We'll see. Tomorrow was supposed to be one of my 30 most memorable television moments. We might do 2 shows tomorrow. We might preempt 30 most memorable TV shows to do the Frightmare in the Falls recap. But right now we're going to talk about wrestling. And I left something wonderful upstairs, and I forgot to bring it down. But my man Stotler Man from the comments, Stotler Man sent me a completely unexpected package yesterday. I didn't hear from him. I assume he's just got my address tattooed on his arm somewhere, and sent out a package that I'll show you tomorrow. I will show you tomorrow. Very nice couple of autographs that I'm going to try to somehow work into the LJN wall, but we'll see. 30 most memorable. Okay, so we're up to number 5. 30 most memorable 30 most memorable wrestling moments. Number 5. Saturdays. No, not Saturday night's main event. I told you that we would not talk about that as a memory because we have covered it so many different times. I feel like I would just be repeating myself. But Saturdays in general are right up there with memorable wrestling moments. In fact, my number 5, my 5th most memorable wrestling moment is just Saturdays, right? And what was on TV as a WWF fan as a kid on Saturdays? Well, their flagship show, WWF Superstars of Wrestling. Now, prior to that, it was just called WWF Championship Wrestling. And around 86, I think, it switched over to Superstars of Wrestling and was then filmed from different arenas throughout the country. Prior to that, it was Championship Wrestling, and it was filmed from one location. And I always get the locations wrong. It's either the Agricultural Hall in like Hamburg or wherever. It was a small venue It was a hall of some kind, a civic center of some kind. It was not a big arena. Then they got big and they took it on the road, and they would do 4-hour TV tapings at big arenas. But that is a big, big, big. That's one of the biggest childhood experiences was Saturdays. Saturdays waiting until noon to watch WWF Superstars of Wrestling. Now, up till noon, you had your Saturday morning rundown. So I remember the lineups on Saturday mornings so clearly. Every year you had kind of a different block of cartoons, Muppet Babies and the Real Ghostbusters and stuff like that. And then around 10 or 10:30, Pee-wee's Playhouse would come on. And we would watch that, because then at 11, now in my area, WWF Superstars of Wrestling, or Wrestling Superstars, was on at 11. So right after Pee-wee's Playhouse, boom, we'd go right to the recognized symbol of excellence in sports entertainment. Superstars of Wrestling kicks off. And and I would be glued in front of the TV for a good solid hour. Now that speaks volumes to your level of interest in wrestling, because back then, as you know, Superstars of Wrestling, Wrestling Challenge, whatever syndicated wrestling shows, especially for the WWF, would have all squash matches. Now, what's a squash match? Well, 95% of you already know, but a squash match is the superstar beats up a guy who has no chance of winning, rarely gets any offense, and the matches are like under 3 minutes. Would today's wrestling fan watch wrestling if it was an hour of squash matches? 100% no. Wrestling would not be alive today if the same concept existed, where, in some alternate universe, squash matches stayed and house shows and pay-per-views were the only times you could see a big match. Wrestling would be dead. It would be dead and buried. But for whatever reason, we were just captivated by it. We didn't care that, every one of the superstars was going to win their match against a no-namer who wasn't a no-namer. It was the same guys we've seen all week. And many of those guys, please do not think I'm talking badly about the jobbers or the enhancement workers or whatever you wanted to call them. Oftentimes they had way more talent than the superstars that they were facing. And so I had no problem sitting there week after week and watching that kind of match. And after Superstars of Wrestling on our Fox affiliate, I believe it was Fox, but then I also look back to some old TV guides, and it was on like Channel 8 or Channel 10, which is our NBC CBS affiliate. In my mind, my incorrect mind, I've always got wrestling on Fox. But apparently that's not the case, and I just can't imagine it being on NBC or CBS back then. I just don't see it, but it did. It wasn't on Fox, which was our Channel 31. So I had no problem sitting there. And then after wrestling was American Gladiators, which was another captivating show. And so my Saturday, I did not get off the couch or off the floor, the carpeted floor on my elbows. I did not get off the couch until well after noon, until closer to 1. And that's when TV sucked at 1 o'clock on a Saturday. There's nothing on. There's golf. There's figure skating. There's, some animal documentary type show, Mutual of Omaha, Jacques Cousteau. There's some black and white movie from 1948. So that's when my day began. That's when my Saturday began at 1 p.m. And it started at probably about 7, sometimes earlier. So could you imagine today? I know I can't in my house, but could you imagine today a child sitting in front of the television from 7 a.m. to 1 p.m. on a Saturday and it was okay. It was okay. Our parents didn't yell at us about the screen time. They knew we were going to go outside after our shows were over, after our programs. But nowadays, for whatever reason, people believe that it'll rot your brain and you'll never become a successful college graduate if you watch more than 37 seconds of TV a day. So I do miss it. My kids have nothing to watch, though. They have no reason to sit in front of the TV and watch good quality programming back to back to back to back for 6 hours. They wouldn't do that. They would watch YouTube for 6 hours. They would watch Typical Gamer play Fortnite for 6 hours on YouTube. So the concept doesn't exist. It doesn't exist anymore. Do I want them to watch YouTube for 6 hours? No. Would I care if they were watching Ghostbusters and G.I. Joe and Rambo and Muppet Babies and wrestling and Pee-wee's Playhouse and American Gladiators? No, I'd be sitting there right next to them. But anyway, Superstars of Wrestling was a huge show. It was the WWF A show, which means it was the flagship show. It was the show that, angles would be talked about. You'd hear about big events first on Superstars of Wrestling. Then you'd get Wrestling Challenge, which was, I guess, the B show, but not really. It was just a secondary show, and they wouldn't break any news on Wrestling Challenge. You'd hear about it first on Superstars of Wrestling, and then Wrestling Challenge would repeat it. But of course, I watched Wrestling Challenge also. It just kind of gets dismissed because Superstars of Wrestling was the one that we grew up with. And since we were wrestling fans, we also grew up equally with Wrestling Challenge. We also grew up equally with Primetime Wrestling, right, on USA. But for most of us WWF fans, when we talk about what did we watch, it was Superstars of Wrestling. That's the first thing we think of. That's where you got your Piper's Pit happening. That's when later you got your, the Flower Shop with Adrian Adonis. That's where the Hogan Andre feud started. That's where Randy Savage crushed the larynx of Ricky Steamboat. That's where the British Bulldogs lost the tag team titles. All that great stuff happened on Superstars of Wrestling. And then when it was pay-per-view time, you'd get the much anticipated WrestleMania update or WrestleMania report with Mean Gene in the control center. And that week you would hear about the next 3 or 4 matches that were being added to the WrestleMania card. And you just sat and waited to hear that Coco Beware was going to take on Greg the Hammer Valentine. Who cares? But it's a WrestleMania match and you love it and it's awesome. And you're like, oh, that's going to be a great match. I can't wait to see that one. So WWF Superstars of Wrestling, but also just the whole Saturday morning to afternoon vibe was unbeatable, not able to be duplicated, and never will be duplicated. That is gone. It is dead. It is gone. I feel for my children who don't have a Saturday morning anymore. I work on Saturdays, so I don't have a Saturday morning anymore. Sunday mornings are my Saturday morning. Sunday mornings before anybody gets up, I throw in the cartoon that I'm watching, Rambo. I'm watching Rambo. So it's, I sleep on the couch. So everybody sleeps in on Sunday morning, 7:30, 8 o'clock. I throw in the disc and I watch a couple episodes of Rambo. That's my Saturday morning. That's my Saturday morning now. In a perfect world, I would have the whole Saturday morning lineup going. I would watch wrestling at 11 and whatever. That's the fantasy. That's like, could I create my own TV lineup? Yes, I could with all the footage I have. Do I have enough time? Of course not. Do I have enough privacy? Of course not. Anyway, memorable wrestling moment number 5, WWF Superstars of Wrestling and the accompanying Saturday morning events. That is all. See you at Frightmare in the Falls. Good night now.